what's up? It's your host, Tori, and who is ready to be petty? I'm back with a special episode today. Nick and I are diving into Folklore, Taylor Swift's 8th studio album. And if you listen to my last episode, I promise a better analysis than we did of Hamilton. I literally couldn't remember the name of My Shot, which is probably the most iconic Hamilton song in the entire musical, but nevertheless, we are here to talk about Taylor Swift. We talk about Folklore as a whole, and then we talk about it in the context of Taylor Swift's other music. I would suggest sticking around for the cheese content, which crops up around the hour, 14 mark. That was definitely a highlight for me. Anyways, let's get to the show. Okay, everyone, I've got another exciting guest here to talk all about Taylor Swift's new album. I'm here with Nick. Nick, how are you doing?
I am fantastic. I have been bugging you to get on this podcast, I think, for the last 5 months or so, and we couldn't have found a more perfect opportunity for me to get on it.
Literally. Nick, do you want to tell the listeners of Ready to be Petty how we know each other?
Um, other people Tori have had on this podcast, I met Tori through Survivor orgs. So really, this whole podcast is like an advertisement to apply to Survivor orgs. But yeah, so I met Tori, I think, in December. She actually got snarky with me in one of a cast group, and then she felt bad about it and private messaged me that she was being snarky, to which obviously wasn't an issue. And then I jumped on the opportunity to guilt her into playing an org that I helped host, and we have been good friends ever since.
Yeah, and let's put the emphasis on the guilt trip because
Literally.
I was coerced to play this game coming off of my first org. We've probably lost a lot of listeners, but I think I've mentioned yes, they've exited out of this podcast, but no, but if you like Big Brother or Amazing Race or Survivor, and The Circle, The Challenge, any games like that, apply to ones online, especially if you're still living in quarantine. It's a really great way to pass the time.
And the best part is that after quarantine ends, you've met people from all over, and if they're cool and not serial killery, which are most people, you can travel and stay at their house for free.
Yeah, that's my plan, because Nick's calling in from Maine, which I'm very interested in visiting. Do you want to tell the listeners what you do for work outside of hosting orgs?
Yeah, so you mean where I make my money?
Yes.
Which is ironic because I am a teacher, so I don't make that much money. But I graduated in May of last year, so 2019, forever ago. And yeah, so I just finished my first year of teaching. I will be teaching again in the fall. I teach 9th grade social studies, which timely and a great joy. And I am by far the youngest teacher at my school by 10 plus years, so that's big fun. So the kids like me and hate everybody else, and everybody else is jealous.
I love that. That's honestly the dream. I feel being beloved by teenagers is the highest form of praise.
Literally, that's why there's stands.
Yes, yeah. That's why there's BTS
Yeah.
armies that fuck over Donald Trump, low key.
Oh, that you need those people on Reddit to be petty, because that was the pettiest,
petty.
and I bowed down in their honor.
Me too. Just in case no one knows what we're talking about, the K-pop stans of the group BTS bought 90% of Donald Trump's a rally that he was hosting a few months ago. They bought all of the tickets. And then obviously didn't show up. And so the stands were just empty. And yeah, that's the really, 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 really petty. And I love it. I live for it.
Teenagers are savage and they're real. And if you step out of line, they will check you like nobody else's business. So that's when you know, like when they praise you, like that's why people have kids.
You think that's why people have kids because they like love you unconditionally and like
I mean, either that or they just didn't want to wrap it.
yeah, one or the other. One or the other. But yeah, you're right. I guess like yeah, you'll always like have well, not always, but usually have a fan in your child.
At least before they start talking.
Yes, 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 absolutely. So we're here to talk about the newly released folklore album. I think this is the first time I've said folklore like out
I hate
loud.
the pronunciation of that word.
It's so bad. It's so bad. But basically, I was absolutely floored. Like, Taylor Swift, if you're out of the loop, don't listen to this podcast. Run to Spotify and listen, like stream the album and then
And
come
then come
back.
back.
Yeah, make sure you come back though. Like but basically Taylor Swift last week gave us like 24 hours notice that she was dropping a new album, and it like blew everyone's minds.
Yeah, I woke up, I think it was last Thursday morning she announced it. And I woke up and it was the first thing that I saw on Twitter. And I ran to my 16-year-old cousin's like text message thread and was like, hey, tell me everything that you know about this. And she sent me back like a paragraph and I was like, oh, we're ready to go. We are ready to go.
I was like embarrassed because it got sent to my like IRL friends group chat, and I was like, aren't I supposed to be the one that's like on top of like these stories and stuff? Whoops.
I think my favorite part about this album being released is I have probably spent like a whole ass work week, like 40 hours of my life dedicated to talking about Taylor Swift and like her older albums, ranking songs. Like we've done this together. So when she released
Yes.
this out of nowhere, I was like, oh, this is like what they say when like the skies have opened. Like this was written in the stars.
Completely. I felt like we just got Lover. Like I felt like that was literally 2 seconds ago. So I was so excited.
Well, so selfishly, I was ecstatic when she dropped it because if like COVID weren't a thing, which I would be going to Loverfest because like I'm Boston based. So she was having Loverfest East in Gillette. That was like the big festival concert she was gonna have. And I was going to it, and obviously like it got canceled. So this was like a perfect supplement to me not going to the concert this weekend and getting a whole new list of songs that hopefully like whenever concerts are allowed to happen again, I'll get like all the good songs from Lover and all the good songs from Folklore, and we can cut some of like the other ones that I didn't need to hear in the first place.
Yeah, completely. I did not know that. So you're like a true
Well,
like Swiftie. Do you call
so
yourself that?
no, because I think I'm not like a fake fan, but I don't think I've started like seriously following Taylor Swift until Reputation was probably the first big one that like I was ready for that release. I was ready for new Taylor Swift stuff. Not to say that I haven't followed all of her like the rest of her journey. I remember where I was like the first time I heard like Teardrops on My Guitar, Tim McGraw, like from that first album, Slaps. I don't know. I think if we're gonna talk about like Taylor Swift, I'm gonna talk about men as like I am a man.
Yes.
I think being somebody who follows Taylor Swift as a like guy carries like negative reaction because for whatever reason, like Taylor Swift is not seen as like a masculine like thing to follow, whereas like other female acts are like more
Like
base. Like you don't
acceptable.
think about
Yeah.
it. So I
Yeah.
had a like one of my best friends since like first grade went to the like Reputation concert back in like 2017 or 2018, and we were supposed to be like hanging out with one of my other friends that weekend. He skipped like going to his like lake house to go to the concert, and they gave him crap like the whole weekend. And there I was like, I wish I could be at the Reputation tour. Like, but yeah, so I guess like growing up, Reputation was the first one she released while I was in college. So I think that was probably the first time where I was like, I'm gonna bump this shit and not care.
Yeah, I love that. That's so like freeing, but I completely agree that there's something about her fan base that does seem like geared towards like kind of like the stereotypical girl if we think about it. Like just that most of them are like love songs or about relationships. And I think especially her earlier work was like pining over people. And I just feel like when you think of someone pining over someone, you think of like a girl. But like obviously that's not true. Like men experience the same emotions and the same feelings, but maybe they just don't express it in that same way.
Yeah, and that's what I guess I don't know how to phrase it, but we're talking about folklore, which we will.
It's so bad.
It is very not like gender specific. There's a lot of times where she doesn't
Yes.
use certain pronouns that it works with both
Yes.
sides. I think if you look to Taylor Swift's earlier stuff,
Yeah.
from Taylor Swift, the OG album, to like Speak Now, it is very much like writing love songs, like her like fawning over guys, or her like sending breakup songs to guys. And
Yeah.
that's why people have this connotation of like Taylor Swift being a women's artist.
I think that's such a good point.
I was say that switches, I think, when you look at like 1989.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the albums as a whole later on, but the
Yes.
album of Red is when she makes that change. I think a lot of people can identify that's the change, but that album of Red is something that has grown in its legacy since its release. That if you look back on that album now, that's the first time where I think you get like adult Taylor Swift, and adult Taylor Swift really is like music for everybody. She touches on themes, she writes lyrics that every single person can relate to, even if you haven't experienced those things. So I think that's why, like, since Lover last year, I've been so like, yes, I'm gonna go through like Taylor Swift's like entire discography, because it's stuff that you can, even if you don't relate to, she's so good lyrically that you just like enjoy reading.
You're pointing out some things that I like haven't even thought about, but you're totally right. Like when you think of her OG albums or like the first two, you think of Dear John or like when she's singing to Drew and like those like really specific things. But one of the best parts about her later records is, yeah, that they're more like general, like you can envision yourself as like the person that is singing the songs. And like that's especially for this one because as people probably know, folklore, like it is stories woven together. There's not like one clear like narrator. They're from different perspectives. So I don't know, it is way more accessible for a lot more people.
And for me, it's if you can envision the person singing as a character that is not Taylor Swift, and you can envision people in your own life that might relate to these songs, then that's why I connect to it. So like if we start off the bat like talking about like The One, which it kicks off the album, like that is such a feeling that you can understand and weighs heavy on you, even if like you're like me and I've never been in a relationship. So it's just funny how the lyrics as Taylor Swift has grown into an adult have shifted from the theme she touched on when she was like a high schooler, which makes sense because when you're in high school, you should be talking about those things. But I think the reputation she gets from that earlier work supersedes or precedes her in the mind of like adults that would enjoy their music if they didn't know it was like, oh, Taylor Swift released a new album.
Totally. And I think this album is that, like, that people would listen to it, not know it's Taylor Swift specifically, and like really enjoy it. Like, I think that if you heard songs on the radio, like, I think that this type of genre or like this new kind of sound that this album has, like, anyone can enjoy it.
Uh, I'm just so excited to do like the dive into this
I
because
know,
it
I
is.
know. It's pretty sensational. Do you think that it's getting so like we said at the top of the show, it was a surprise album. There was no prior press. Otherwise, she just went on Instagram and posted a bunch of things. Do you think that it's getting specific eyes on it because of like COVID and quarantine or the surprise element? Or do you think that like any album that she releases would be like this?
So I think that any album Taylor Swift releases carries the name Taylor Swift. It's like I hate to compare, but it's like if Kanye releases an album, you know that name. If Drake releases an album, you know that name. If Post Malone releases an album, you know that name. It gets play by default. Um, what I love about her releasing this album is how like mood and culture fitting it is to like this place and time. So I am like a social studies teacher, history teacher. I think so much of like the placement of things, even in pop culture, and how we might reflect back on them in 10 years' time. That's just how my brain is wired to work. And if we look back at Reputation, there's a huge rollout for that album because she had went like MIA for a year and then she wiped all her social media that everything was like just blank. So you knew something was coming. And when you look at Lover has to be the complete like antithesis that Reputation was. So where everything about Reputation being dark, Lover has to be bright and light, and that's why she kicks it off with Me. And it's like a juxtaposition between the two albums that need those huge rollouts. Given the culture that we're in now, knowing the story of her writing folklore over quarantine, I think it's so important that the way that she released it was like, hey, I made this for myself, my healing process, just what I did creatively with my time. Take it. If you don't like it, I don't care. I made it for me.
I love that. And I just cannot believe like the quality of this album for someone that put it together during quarantine. Like I was thinking about the things that I did in quarantine and it was like I made like Rice Krispie squares. I like made some puzzles. I talked to you all online every day for many hours and then like I don't know,
Yeah, it's
slept a lot. Like
everybody else was like learning how to make bread and cleaning their house. And Taylor Swift said, I am going to put out like a flawless ish 16 track album that is going to blow people away and probably be nominated for like album of the year in
yeah,
a 3 month period of time.
with like all of the like perfect aesthetic and like all of the like companion like pieces. Like she has like the little stories that you can read. She has the specific albums that you can purchase, like the ones that like match, I don't know, different songs or aesthetics or something like that. Like it's just so perfect. She's sending cardigans to everybody. Do you want one of
Yeah.
those cardigans?
Well, so I actually saw today that PETA tweeted that they were wool-free cardigans, and PETA was like standing Taylor
Stoked.
Swift for like not hurting the sheep, which like big support of. Now, it is humid as hell in Maine. I don't need a cardigan right now, but you know, as we roll into fall, perhaps if Taylor Swift wants to send me anything for free, like
Yeah.
I take anything for free. I have like the greediest mindset.
Like Taylor, I know that you were waiting for the Ready to Be Petty album review and you're
Yes,
listening. So
exactly, Taylor.
yes,
Come on.
send us the cardigan. If I'm gonna be like true to myself and petty, I will say two things about the cardigans.
It's ugly. It's so
It's
ugly.
so fucking ugly. It's so fucking ugly. I like the like it does look like a nice like wool blend, but like the beige with the navy stripe I feel like is just like 2014, and then the fucking like silver stars on the like arm.
I am praising you right now because uh, my fashion sense is like literally nothing. Like if you guys could watch me on camera
Neither.
right now, I'm in like a gray Maine hockey t-shirt and like light blue pants. Like this is all, for all intents and purposes, like a grow fit.
Oh my
And I'm
god,
like
I love that.
sweating. So
Yes, me too.
I am going to be the last person to judge anything with validity, including this album. But the Cardigan Stars is very much like I'm being OTT right now because I talk about you write stars around my scars or something in the song. So we're going to put stars on that shit.
I
It's
know.
very much a collector's edition. And if we're going to just roll down the petty train a little bit more
Yes,
here,
please.
who the frick wears cardigans at this point in time? Do people still wear them? Like, it was clearly left under somebody's bed for a reason.
Oh my god, that's so amazing. Yeah, like I feel like everybody has maybe one cardigan in their closet for the time that you're wearing something and you're like, okay, I just need like an additional sweater or like a layer of warmth or
It's like
something.
I need to look like I dressed up.
Yeah, yes. Like I'll just throw this over a tank top to look like I like was put together. But like it is very like early 2010s like Tumblr, like really ugly.
It is very Tumblr aesthetic. Now, if she had released like a scarf that she talked about in like All Too Well, that is much more multidimensional, much more purposeful. The cardigan, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we will. Okay, I will ask, okay, like in my head, when I think about Maine, where you live, I think of like, maybe I have like the wrong state. But like I think of like people wearing cardigans and like falling leaves and I don't know, like green spaces.
Yes, yeah, so sure, that's not incorrect. But so I don't even consider myself like somebody from Maine. So like I was born like basically in Boston, just outside Boston. Then I went to school in Maine. I've spent summers in Maine like my entire life, and now I work in New Hampshire. So I'm just like New England is what I consider myself. And New
Right.
England weather is the biggest mess because like the summers are humid as hell, and then the winters are like frozen wasteland. So we get fall for maybe like 2.5 weeks, the last like 2 weeks of September, like the first week of October. Then all the leaves are dead. Everything is dead. Everything is like brown, and it's just like a miserable existence. But fall is beautiful for like the 2.5 weeks that we get it.
Oh my goodness. Cause like I just kind of, I don't know. That's just like what I have in my head. That and like lobsters. Like, okay, we can't get off like too much of a tangent, but like also I was just thinking, doesn't Taylor Swift have a house in Maine?
Yes, and so she
Yeah.
does, or she
Yeah.
did. Her song "Mine," like from, oh my god, I don't know what album it was from. Speak Now, maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
speak now.
she recorded that in a town called Kennebunkport, which is in Maine. That's like an hour from me. So I remember when she was here in like 2010, 2011, filming that music video. It was like a huge deal. Yeah.
Cause I just think of like that big white house on the beach with the Tom Hiddleston I love TS tank top situation. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Okay, she like threw, you know, those like couple years that she threw like famous 4th of July parties?
Yes, yes. Which she alludes to on this album.
Yes. And she also alludes to it on This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things,
Hmm.
like that situation. But basically when she like had that brief fling with Tom Hiddleston, which like I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that. He's like irrelevant now. But they like had like rumors that like he didn't like her, like, or they were breaking up or something. So on 4th of July, he wore like a tank top, like a white tank top, and it said I love TS.
Well, how high school romantic. Yes, this is vaguely familiar. Like I said, I am a new Swifter. Not a
Yeah.
Swifty yet, but yes.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, it's something like I'll always like hold against her because it was so bad. And then they were like swimming and stuff like that and like going down a water slide, and it was just like really wet on his skin. I just have
Is
bad
Tom
memories.
Hiddleston Draco Malfoy?
No.
Oh, I was gonna say
But that
I
visual
don't.
is fucking amazing.
That's why I'm like, why was she like? Why were they a thing? Like that just like it doesn't mix. But I guess she got with like a British guy anyway, so one and the same.
Yeah, he's in, I want to say Spider-Man. Is that correct? I'm looking him up right now. He's also from England. He's old. He's
Yes, I was gonna
39.
say he's old and
Yeah. Okay, he was in
yeah.
like some Marvel movies. Like I
Oh
said
god,
before,
that's like
like
my least
honestly,
favorite subject of conversation.
right? Like he seems pretty irrelevant to me, but I just remember they met at like the Met Gala and then had like a
God, rich
3 month
people things.
relationship. Yeah. They like danced at the Met Gala. Anyways, let's dive into the actual album. I don't even know where to begin. I'm blown away.
I have a question for just if we're gonna dive into the start of the album.
Yes.
She puts The One as the first song on the album. And whenever I listen to albums, I listen to them like straight through, like repeatedly until I get like a sense of like the mood and like what they're trying to capture.
Same.
What are your feelings as The One as the lead kickoff song?
It was everything to me. And I really hope you don't have a conflicting opinion because the one like we're gonna do superlatives later, our worst the worst song on the album, the best song on the album, what we think is gonna be like the hit classic. But I was about to pick the one. For me, it's so good. And like I thought that it set the tone. Like it's light enough to like I don't know. It seems like a good opener and I thought Hoax was a good like closing song too. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, so I don't know if you know this, but she wrote The One and Hoax. Those are the final two songs she wrote for the album because she was looking for one to kick off the album and what like bookends, one to close it off.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think I love The One. Like I think that is such a universal feeling that everybody can relate to, from like elementary school students to like grandparent elderly. Like
Yes.
I think that that feeling of like having somebody who you think could be the one if it weren't for a few things and losing them and then like reflecting back on that, not in a negative way or not necessarily in like a positive way, but just as a an awareness of a time where you thought you could have had it. um I think it's really strong, and I love the first lyric where she starts off the first line on the album with a swear, and she goes, "I'm on that new shit," and it's like yes, and you feel that because you immediately recognize the tone and the vibe for this album is not going to be what 1989 Reputation or Lover was. It's
Yes.
totally different. And I think it fits the mood of the album cover. It fits the mood of everything you heard about the album upon release. And it just works so well. And it is such a timeless song.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like the one, you know, when I don't know if you do this, but if you're really sad and you just go on a drive, I feel like it is the perfect song to just like as soon as you get on your into your car and you turn on the ignition, putting on that song and just like fucking cruising. Just having a little tear by yourself.
Yeah,
Like
so see, gas here in America is very expensive. So I can't just do that. But I lawn mow a lot and I listen to music. So like I'm like lawn mowing very slowly, like listening to like The One and like looking at the trees and just like imagining like people that I know who like have been in relationships and got out of relationships that were so strong. And it is very like melancholy.
yeah, it's the one where if it was a movie soundtrack, the main character's like in an airplane or in a car, it's raining and they're like staring out the window with their like hand pressed against the pane.
Yeah, it's very Parent Trap when like Elizabeth James and
Nick
Annie are like
Parker.
waving
Oh,
off Nick and Hallie. They're like,
yes.
boy, and it's like raining and it's so dramatic. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And the car like goes through like a puddle and shit. It's just so perfect.
But what I love about the song is like the chorus where she just talks about like how if like one thing had been different, or maybe that's a bridge, but like if one thing has been different, could things be different? And I think that's a thought that all people have in any relationship that they have, whether it be like a friend that they've lost or a relationship that they've been in or a survivor or you get voted out of, where you're like, if this one thing was different, could everything not be what it is right now? And I think that's a feeling people have when they get out of relationships, whether the ones who like got broke up with or did the breaking up with.
I always thought when people broke up, it was over like a fight or something happened, someone cheated on someone, or like there was this big disaster. But like then I grew up and I realized that people can split up when they still love each other and maybe it's just bad timing or I don't know, something happens and it's just like this song is like chef's kiss perfection.
Yeah, and for Taylor Swift and what her whole discography has felt like, or when she's been building to this album, a lot of the breakup songs have been like, you cheated on me, you did me wrong. Or there's a few where she's like, look, like it was my fault. Like I'm asking for apology. I'm asking for you to forgive me. This one, it doesn't feel like it places blame on either side.
Anybody.
It's just the whole entire thing, just looking at, recognizing things that happened along the way.
Do you think that she wrote it for someone else, or do you think that it was like about her and like Kelvin or something like that?
Well, so with this album being called Folklore, I just imagine it being her trying to tell other people's stories,
Yeah.
her trying to capture something that everybody across any time period could grasp. And I think that this is something that anybody across these time periods can grasp. Because really what she made with this album was something that was so timeless, even though it is rooted in the time period of COVID. And you have to understand that background, understand kind of the aesthetics that flow throughout the album, a lot of the themes that she touches on. But I think the intent with this song is to introduce the album of like, look, I don't care that I'm Taylor Swift or that you know that I'm Taylor Swift. This is a song that every single person can relate to if they wanted to try to relate to it, or recognize the authenticity of. And I think that she knocks it out of the park with this one, off the top. I think the only other song that she has that starts an album
Yeah.
that does anywhere near as good as introducing the flavor,
Yeah. The
the mood,
flavor.
the flavor, the
Yeah.
taste,
Yeah.
of the album is Ready for It from Reputation. I think
Yes.
those are the only two in terms of closeness of the album kicks off that you're like, oh, I know what I'm getting into right now.
Yeah, because you just like know, you're just like so hyped for it. The second single is Cardigan, which is actually like it's the second song, but it's the one that's like released to like, I don't know, radio stations or whatever. Like it's the I don't know the correct terminology, but
A
it's like the one
single.
that it's yeah, the single. And like it's so weird how I feel like she never picks good singles.
So, what is your thoughts on this? Do you think this is not a good single?
I don't think it's a good single. Like I guess like in terms of just maybe because it's not one of my favorite songs. And it's not just because I hate the fucking Cardigans, but like I just feel like I don't know. I don't like love the lyrics. I listen to it. Like I don't skip it. I think it's a great song. I'll definitely listen to it, but I don't know. I just feel like she picks singles that I don't know. It probably does make more sense to this album, but maybe I just don't like it. Like I'm just even thinking about when she released Me with Brendan Urie. Like I don't know. I feel like people were like, ugh.
Okay, so this is where I disagree with you, I think. I do think Me, terrible first single choice. I was talking to somebody the other day and I was like, there was two songs on Lover that could have ended up on the editing room floor, and Me was one of them.
Yes.
Do I think this is the best song she could have started with? No. Do I have any complaints with it? Also, no. I think what she does really well in this song is it is so Taylor Swift because the bridge in this song is perfect, in my opinion. That like the way that it builds to it and the way that she sings the bridge, the way that the background production plays, crushes. I was talking to my friend or our friend Jen the other day about it, and she was like, the way Cardigan would probably be the perfect song if she had said anything other than Cardigan. Um, I think
Fair.
it's the word cardigan is just uncomfortable to pronounce. It's like moist. That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Um, I think the reason why she chooses this one to be the first single is because Cardigan, August, and Betty are the album's love triangle that we can get into,
Yes.
where it's three people that are in passing phases of each other's lives, either like being in a relationship, cheating on, being the other woman, so to speak. And Cardigan is from Betty's perspective. And I think you need this song first to build into the other two. And we'll get into it later, but my wonder is her release plan for this album going to be Cardigan, August, then Betty?
Like, that makes sense. I was hoping that August would be the first one. It seems so fitting. Or something a little bit more poppy and upbeat, because it is like end of July,
Mhm.
like something like Invisible String. But I do get that there's this kind of trilogy with Cardigan, Betty, and August.
Yeah, I don't love the bridge, but I
Yeah.
think that's my only issue really with this song. Not the bridge, sorry, the chorus. I don't know if I
Chorus.
love like the chorus that's happening here. But I think there's some like clever Swiftian phrases where she talks about like you put me on and said I was your favorite. You think she's talking about like you're putting me on like the cardigan, but I think she means like you put me on as like you lied to me and said like I was your favorite, that you loved me, but behind my back you were cheating because you couldn't deal without sex for a weekend. And I think that those types of phrases and the types of language that she uses, like she says like you're leaving like a father, she has some like sick burns on this one that are very Taylor Swift-esque lyrics that she wants you to have up front.
Yeah, and I think that that's the best part about this is the sound is so different from her normal things, but you still get those like quick, yeah, references or those quick like quips that you see throughout all of her work that just makes it like so good. Like there's those one-liners and like those things that just like super stand out. And like you were right, you mentioned this before, that tie other songs to this album. And I think like at first glance people think that this is such a like divergent album compared to her past ones, but there's still like the kind of tried and true things that, yeah, that she's had throughout her whole career.
So let's talk about August as like the follow up, even though it's not the track directly
Yeah.
after, like the follow up to this story. What
Yes.
you seem to really like it. So
Yes.
what about it is like speaking to you?
I think it seems like a song that you would hear on a soundtrack to like to all the boys I loved before, or like or like do you know what I'm saying? Like a classic like young adult novel turned movie. Like that's what it feels like, and that's what I'm like looking for in any content that I consume.
You know what? That's actually really funny because I wasn't thinking to all the boys I loved before, but I was thinking that Miley Cyrus and Liam Hemsworth movie where they're like on the
Yes.
beach for the entire summer. And
Yes.
last
The
song,
last song.
because even the way the song starts out, it's very airy. And I'm not going to sing for you because nobody deserves to hear that. This is not my audition for American Idol or Canadian's Got Talent or whatever it is. But she starts and it's very airy and like echoey. And as the song like progresses, the picture unfolds to you. Um, I really like the chorus when or I guess Taylor Swift says like, "Because you were never mine. You were like August and you slipped away," because August as a month is like that last month before summer. Like it goes so quick before it turns into fall.
And like I don't know if this was on purpose. It is the eighth track and
Oh, it was
August
on
is the eighth
purpose.
month. Yeah. I feel like it's like everything's on purpose with Taylor.
Well, if you look, the one is the first track and it's not written the ONE, it's written the one.
One.
Seven is seven, August is eight. Like she
It's just
thinks.
perfection. She literally thinks of everything. Like I don't get how she can, not that I don't get that she can be this clever. Obviously she is this clever, but I just cannot believe that someone can think of all of these perfect things, that these little Easter eggs that we're looking for in all of her
And it's
albums.
everywhere. And so many of her lines from this album call back to other albums, just in terms of like lyric choice. Um,
Yeah.
I was surprised that I liked August as much as I did because it's produced by Jack Antonoff, and for me, I look at Jack Antonoff as a producer who's like you hit him once and they're done. Like you don't need to like keep doing the same thing. And she's used Jack Antonoff since like she's really went full fledged pop with 1989 and so on. And I think that 1989 wins Grammy of the Year because it's the first time that she's working with that different sound. And then I think the reason why people have like a negative view of Reputation or Lover is because a lot of those like pop synth that you hear, even though they're wildly different, it's Jack Antonoff based. And I don't need to hear like Jack Antonoff in his style like for 4 albums in a row. But she picks and chooses when to use him. I think she'll use him on like 5 songs this album. And I will say I was pleasantly surprised, I think, with like almost all that used him, because she used him in a way where that pop synth is, like I said, airy, and echoey.
And you're not the first person to say that, of like her Jack Antonoff era has like been some people's like least favorite, which is interesting to me. But yeah, like there is some like tones that just sound the same that he uses like repeatedly. But I am glad, because I think in her past albums, yeah, it was like the entire thing was with him, but now she was working with Aaron Dressner, who's obviously from the 1975, and just like specific, I don't know, just different people. And like, I'm actually glad about that.
Well, the fact that she has Bon Iver on this album tells you all you need to know about like the type of vibe she was going for. And I think she was strategic in her use of like, well, I want Jack to be a part of this, but he can't, his sound does not fit what I'm looking for here. So I like that.
I always think about, I can't even remember what song, but you know, when it's in a previous song, she says like, you're probably listening to like an indie record
It's much cooler than mine.
much cool. This is what I honestly think of. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I think of when I think of that, is like, she like became that indie record that.
Well, yeah. So a lot of people keep dubbing this like her indie record. And
Yeah.
I guess I get it. For me, it's her like tour de force songwriting record. She's like, look, like I got it. And this is an album that every single time you listen to it through, you like better. It does not need,
Yes.
because I think the problem a lot of people had on their first listen through was like, where is that Cruel Summer type song? Where is
Yes.
that blank space? Where is this gigantic like behemoth of a
Hit.
song that is going to take
Yes.
over my radio and destroy my life and make me hate it for the next 6 months? Like, where is that song? And this album doesn't give it to you, but the album doesn't need it the more you listen to it, because the sounds and the highs and the lows that she creates between lyrics, background production, and like song themes
Yeah.
feels full. Like you feel whole after finishing it. And I think that's why you go back again and again and again.
It just all matches. And like, I actually like, this is one of the first albums I feel like I've listened to in a really long time that I listened to the entire thing in one go. And I was like, I loved that. Like, I feel like when albums are like more diverse, or I don't know, like just a lot of different sounds, I just feel like I haven't clicked, or I'm like, I don't even want that like saved on my Spotify. Like, but this one, like, I really don't have that.
Well, even the songs that I do have that like feeling with, of, because for me, I did have to go through this a few times to get like, okay, this is what this song is trying to tell me, like lyrically, productionally. I don't teach English, kids. I keep going back to them to listen to them and see like, what am I missing about it? And there aren't any skips, in sense of like, I don't want to hear that, or like I'm bored with that. There are songs I will go to more than I'll go to others, but this is an album I will always put on the one, and I will let it run straight through the track list as like a complete piece. Whereas with like Lover, some of those back 6 tracks, like I don't need Me, I don't need It's Nice to Have a Friend. I actually really
never
like
heard of her.
this is, no, what is it called? Look, wait, no. You Need to Calm Down, but I love it because it's fun and it's campy. I don't need that where it's placed on the album. And I think the Reputation has some of those same trap songs. This one doesn't, based off the build of it.
Do we want to touch on some of the references that are like made in the album? I think that's like some of the best parts, is when you can like try to speculate what she means by that. I think like one of the first things that I just was thinking about, and maybe this is irrelevant to you and other people, but like in Betty, how she names Ryan Reynolds.
Reynolds
And yeah,
and Blake
I
Lively, right?
blanked. Yeah, Blake Lively's kids' names like shook me to my core because they're such a private family. And James, the girl, or their little girl, is on Gorgeous.
Oh, is that her voice?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
wow.
yes. So she has
Gorgeous.
like, yes, yeah. Oh my god, that's so funny. Oh my god, that's so funny. But yeah. She is, and then Inez is their second kid, but they had a kid last year, I think. We
Yeah,
didn't know their
people think they're
name.
somewhere on the album. I read that.
Yes,
And I didn't even
yes.
know they had like other
A
children, to be
third
honest. Like I had no
child.
idea that Inez and James were their first two. This is a total side tangent, so I apologize. I had a French foreign exchange student in high school, and there was like no boy French foreign exchange students left. So I got like a girl French foreign exchange student, and her name was Inez. So when like I heard that lyric, I was like, oh, Inez, which was just like me making it about me, as we should.
As everybody does. I didn't think like Inez. Yeah, I didn't think of that as a French name, but the more you know.
Put the star banner up. The more you
Yeah, the more you
know.
know.
I move as they can see us on podcast.
I do that all the time. I think honestly it makes it better. Anyways.
I just love Betty because the lyrics in that one call back to Cardigan, where in Cardigan she's like, when you're 17 or something, they assume you know nothing. Um, but I knew everything. And in Betty, the guy James is like, I'm 17, I don't know anything. And she's like, no, you assumed that I was stupid and didn't know that you were sleeping around with whoever that chick was in August, but I know. So I like that type of like draw callback. I'm also a complete sucker for a harmonica. Like any song that has a harmonica, I'm like, get me there, I'm in.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, and I think Betty is one of those tracks too. I think there's very few radio tracks on this album. I do think Betty is one that fits a radio type track.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think it's one that people, like when I'm looking online and stuff, that people are obsessed with. Like it's definitely one of the breakout hits.
What is great about that album, and I'm gonna switch this conversation over to like other tie-ins with her lyrics or other things she
Yeah.
alludes to,
Yeah.
is so much of Taylor Swift and who she's made out to be is folklore at this point. If you look at her, the entire decade from 2010 to 2020 with Taylor Swift has been identified in certain time marks with Kanye West. Like it has been. Like the
Yeah.
relationship between the two of them is going to be folklore.
Yeah.
If you just look at both of their careers, a fan of either of their music, like it happens. If you're somebody who follows Keeping Up with the Kardashians, like Kim gets pulled into that.
Yeah.
Other folklore with Taylor Swift is her in this relationship between Scooter Braun and that other guy's whose name I don't remember.
Yeah.
But the
We don't
producers
need to
of like
know.
Big Machine Records.
Yeah.
And that is a still continuing story that Taylor Swift is going to be on the hero or the heroic side of, just as a like beacon of light for artists. And what she does so well in this album is she tells folklore about herself, but makes it about other people. So if we look at like the last great American dynasty, she tells this entire story of Rebecca Harkness. I should know this as a
Yes.
history
Yeah.
teacher. And at the end of the song, she talks about like how she buys her house, and she refers to herself as the maddest woman this town has ever seen. And that's like part of the running lyric that she has. And then she has literally a song called Mad Woman, where she comes for Kim Kanye and
Yes.
Scooter Braun and Scott Borchetta.
Borchetta, you pulled that out of nowhere, and I'm so proud of you.
Well, I was kind of thinking, that like meat that you like carve up that's a little bit like salami, like bruschetta. So I was thinking that, and
No,
I didn't want to pronounce it
bruschetta.
wrong. Yeah, bruschetta, but I think he's like brochetta.
Oh my god, borchetta.
Borchetta, that's what it is.
Okay, bruschetta to me is like an Italian, like tomato
Was that what it is? I just know it's on charcuterie
situation.
boards.
Yeah, you're probably thinking of some type of cured meat, and it's probably something very similar. Um,
Anyway.
anyways, A Mad Woman was in the running for my best song. It is absolute perfection. And I think that people loved when she would make like digs at Kim and Kanye and Scooter and all of these things. But it wasn't, again, like super applicable to people's lives. Like, it was so specific. But the way that she does it in Mad Woman is like anybody could sing along to that, about being like gaslit and
Mhm.
bullied and like made to feel like you're crazy, which I guess is the definition of
Or anybody
gaslighting.
anybody who's just been an outcast on the outside
Yeah.
of people looking at them like you did me wrong and I am acknowledging that. And this is also the first song where she ever says the word fuck, which is like
Yes.
great, 30-year-old Taylor Swift can swear now. Um, but it's so clever lyrically. The tone of the song is so fitting, and she really does like slice their heads off with like such like flippant lyrics where she what I love about it is that she calls back. I feel like I keep saying like what I love about it, what I love about it, what I love about it, like I'm Cupid here like shooting arrows. um but she refers to a song from Reputation, like they're burning all the witches even if you aren't one, from I Did Something Bad, which is a reference to her like scorch earthing. That doesn't have a lisp. Scorch earthing Kanye West. And in this one, she comes for Kim and she says, women love hunting witches too, doing their dirtiest work for you. It's clear to me that wanting me dead has brought you two together, which can be an attack at both Kim and Kanye and like them trying to sink her career to make themselves look better or whatever. And it
Yeah.
can be an attack at Bruschetta Man and Scott whatever or
Scooter.
Scooter,
Scooter.
um, and being like, you two have like my master's copies, and like you just like want like that version of Taylor Swift dead because you own me now.
It is so perfect. And like, I feel like people didn't clue in that like Taylor gets things. Like, I feel like people like didn't see that from her. And she's like turned more, or she's been more open about her politics. Like, that was like very clearly one of the storylines in like the documentary that was released earlier this year, which seems like a lifetime ago. But like her talking about like women tearing down other women, like, and it being like the patriarchy's like dirty work is just, it's perfect. It's literally perfect. And it's something I want to sing to, which like that's what I just like don't get, that she can fit in these like really poignant points, but it's like in a song that you want to listen to.
And that's what this album like is like. Mad Woman is not, it's not a belter song, it's not a song that would make radio headway. It really wouldn't, because the tone of it is just like dark and slow and it's her laying out this story. But lyrically she comes at people with daggers, and you as like an informed audience member, now that you've listened to Ready to Be Petty, Taylor Swift's folklore, can recognize these things in lyrics and say like fuck.
Absolutely. And that's the best part. And this is like what, obviously her lyrics, her music, and everything is perfection, and that's why we love her. But the thing that she has over other pop artists is this absolute ability to craft really like really 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 smart lyrics that, yeah, like absolutely annihilate people. Like, I don't know, it's just so clever. And I think that that's something that she has over like the Katy Perry's and the I don't know, Christina Aguilera's and like the other
Speaking
pop
of Katy
princesses.
Perry, I know her
Yeah.
and Taylor Swift had a feud that's now like over and done with. But Katy Perry released today that she was delaying the release of her album, which was supposed to be like within the next week, for no reason in particular. But obviously, it's because Taylor Swift came out and said, "Yeah, here's my album. Nobody's gonna want to listen to your shiz. So you're just gonna
Yeah.
have to wait."
Yeah, because I don't think like it's an underreported story on this podcast, but like folklore. I fucking can't say it. Folklore broke records. Like
Yeah.
again, like I think the first 24 hours or something like that, it was like 1.3 million records were sold or something like that, which is like nuts.
And you can't even get a hard copy for like another 8 weeks. So it keeps it relevant for like months to come.
Yeah.
She really
Yeah.
is just that bitch.
Oh my God. I know. It's so good. I just can't give her
Oh,
enough praise.
so just some other things that I want to touch on without we're going to
Yes.
touch on every song because that's where we're at this point in life. But the song "Illicit Affairs" I think
Yes.
has become one that I've just like really kept going back to and listen to because I feel like the name of this album really could be "Illicit Affairs." Like if she didn't go with folklore, like that's the one I could see the album being named after because there's so much stuff that touches on like relationships that have broken off for a number of ways that weren't good. And in that song, it feels kind of like the crescendo of the love triangles, like stories of
Yeah.
like these things are born in beautiful places and these things are born out of just like single moments in time. But after it ends, you look back at that moment and just like break over and over and over and over and over again. Like I just think that's such an interesting point that she brings up in that song, not even directly.
You think that it ties in with the Betty storyline? Like it is about like infidelity and talking about like looking at like someone with like a new woman. Do you think it ties into that kind of storyline?
Yeah, and it definitely does, and it captures such a little flashes of like visuals that you can get. The song I think starts out with like, make sure nobody sees you leave, like don't look like conspicuous in any way, like just act natural essentially. There's a talk about like get your perfume or like don't wear your perfume to go hook
Yeah.
up with this person because that smell can't linger even though you bought that perfume like for him. And something that like for the first like X amount of times that you like did it, it was just like a fun and it was like a great thing. It didn't mean anything, but eventually it means something, and it's too late to like go back because you can never have what you wanted because there was cheating going on, and that person might not leave the other person they're with for like any amount of reasons. But now you're connected to this person. It hurts yourself to leave, and it hurts the other person involved in it. Um, so I feel like this is like the omniscient narrator of like somebody looking over at Betty, James, and unnamed third party.
It captures so many details that are just kind of like everyday things, but some of the lyrics are like actually soul destroying. Like some of these lyrics will like actually fuck you up.
The one about like you taught me secret language, I can't speak with anybody else. It's like all that stuff you learned and put into that relationship, and now that doesn't mean anything because it's over and it doesn't work with somebody else. Like you have to learn a whole new set of norms with this new person.
That brings me to tears just thinking about it, like honestly. Is there any other pieces or any other songs that you want to highlight before we get to our superlatives?
The last one that I want to bring up that I'm not going to touch on later is the fifth track. So that is My Tears Ricochet. So your thoughts? I see you shaking your head.
I'm shaking my head because I was like crying to myself in like a dark room listening to this. Like I wasn't in a dark room to like start the album, but it just kind of like it just seemed like the light faded and then I was just like by myself crying. That's why I'm shaking my head. No other reason.
So what Taylor Swift has done with every single one of her albums is the fifth track she's put on has been like the most like heart-wrenching, like emotional, personal song. And on my first listen to through of this album, didn't pick up on like how soul destroying My Tears Ricochet is. I didn't get it. It was something that I was like, okay, well, maybe that was just not it. And it took me a few like re-listens to get to, because I'm used to those like strong ballad, those Dear Johns, that All Too Well, like that type of mood that she's going for. And My Tears Ricochet ends up killing you because it's like she's devastated and destroyed by something, but other people are destroyed by that as well. And you can apply that to like a Scooter and Bruschetta, or you could apply that to a relationship that you're in where like somebody else just like destroys you, but they're also hurt by that. And I think the visual and the fact that she can work the word ricochet into a song period is dumb. Like, how do you do that?
I
But the
know.
visual of like something that hurts me and it bounces off me and it's going to hurt you and take you down too is kind of like devastating.
Yeah, like it's super, super profound. And I think like the thing that I just love also about Taylor's albums is because we're relatively the same age. Like, I really feel like a lot of these albums have come at times for me that just like make sense. Like when she was talking about like crushing on high school boys, like so was I. And
You're
then
like,
it's
oh, Chase Edwards.
I felt like I was gonna crop that out, but I don't think I'm going to. Enjoy everybody that knew me in high school. Uh, but like, it was just like, like just, I don't know. I just feel like this is her most adult album when I'm at my most adult in my life. And it just, I don't know. It just feels so right. That's why I feel, I don't know, so strongly about why that this is such a great album and why it's so profound.
And I was talking to one of my friends recently, like right after this album got dropped, because earlier this summer, like we would sit on the beach and I was like playing like other like Taylor Swift stuff because there was like a few of us that I've been hanging out with this summer in my like little quarantine bubble that were going to go to like the Loverfest concert. So Taylor Swift is just something that we could agree on to listen to. So after the album dropped, she texted me and she was like, "Hey, did you hear that Taylor Swift released an album?" And I was like, "You're like 4 hours behind. I found out from Twitter like hours ago. Wake up earlier." And she was like, "I'm gonna give it a listen." And she doesn't like Taylor Swift. She was like, I don't want to listen to any of it. Like I like any of her other stuff. She was like, "I don't like Taylor Swift. Like, please don't play it around me." And she listened through the album and she was like, "Oh, like I like really liked it. I think this is the first album that Taylor Swift has ever put out that I've been able to like relate to and get and just like feel, like be open to like accepting, because it's not polished, it's not put on, it's very authentic." Whereas like some of her other stuff, you're kind of like, why are you trying to fit this mold that always isn't exactly you?
There is a part of Taylor Swift that I feel like people just know, and maybe this is why she gets flack, that is just like a little bit hokey or like a little bit like too on the nose or anything like that. And this is just like not the case with this album. And I've heard that multiple times too of like my friend wasn't a Taylor Swift fan or anything like that, and then they listened to this album and they like were converted. And I'm happy for her. Because I just feel like there's those types of things that I don't know, were like cheesy, or I don't know what the right word is, but like that, I don't know, there's just something about her that a lot of people didn't like relate to or like or enjoy, and I just feel like that's like none of this is
Yeah,
here.
this is very adult. It's not
Yeah.
all that stuff that you just said. So let me just not repeat myself.
Yeah. Like I just think it's yeah, like again, if people didn't know it was from Taylor Swift, I think like everyone would find like songs that they like in this album. So, we're going to do our superlatives. I'm very excited to see. We don't know what each other's answers are, so this is going to be new. Because this is Ready to Be Petty, we're going to start with the worst song on the album because that's just the way we roll around here. So, Nick, what is your worst song on the album?
So I have two.
Yeah.
um I think the worst one for me is Epiphany. I can't do it. I listen to it every time. I don't skip it because there is something in that song. Like there she's on it. It talks like there's a whole verse that talks about COVID. It just feels unnatural because the first verse is like talking about war, and when she's singing it's like, wait, am I supposed to be feeling like this is like real life events, or am I supposed to be feeling like this is like a relationship that's doomed? And it's just uncomfortable and it's chunky, and I don't like the background production on it all. I don't like the word epiphany when she's like waiting for some epiphany. Like I don't
Yeah.
mess with it. It is not my jam. That said, I think it could potentially age well because that verse on COVID, if you were just read the lyrics, is a very strong and poignant, and everybody existing today that doesn't live under a rock can understand what she's going for with that verse. I think the fall down is in the song production and the way that she sings it. So that is, I think, at present moment, my least favorite song on the album. I don't look forward to getting there. And every time I get there, I'm like, okay, pay attention this time, pay attention this time. And then I'm like, and then I'm
It's
like, okay,
still
let's
not
get to the
good.
next one.
And yeah, I agree with that. What's your other one? You said you had two.
So I think I'm opening myself up to this one. Seven, I've like tried to grasp seven. I don't, part of me feels like it's forced in the sense of like she wanted to be like artsy and make the seventh song on her track called Seven. I think I have finally come around to understanding its lyrics a little bit better. It seems like in the song she had a friend who, when she was younger, and maybe she had like an abusive father or she didn't fit in at home. It it the song itself does come off as like very LGBTQ plus in the sense that there's allusions to like um hiding in a closet, or you can come live like with me because
Mhm.
your home life isn't good. But I don't like the transition from the verses to the chorus where then she's like sweet tea in the summer. It's very Demi Lovato, like it's cool for the summer, but instead of it being like let me like whip my hair and like rock out and like
Yeah,
scream, it's very much like let me like twirl
depressing.
around in my like pastry dress and be like sweet tea in the summer. So like I haven't grasped it as a whole yet.
Yeah, like it's like the lyrics. You're right. Like leading up to the chorus are like if you really think about them,
Cross
like
my heart, won't tell no other. Like, and I understand we're trying to play on the fact that like you're 7 years old and
yeah,
you get to drink sugar for the first time,
yeah,
and
and cross my
you aren't
heart
going to
and
tell
like hope to
secrets.
die. Yeah, it's like that's very like school, like not I don't know, like a phrase you would say.
And it's like, Taylor, we want gossip. Like, you're going to tell other people. We want it to go around town. But in the issue I have, and probably why it's really creative as a song, is on its surface level, it is very much like reflecting on your childhood and reflecting on like a friend that you had in the child on your childhood and blah 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 blah. But then under the surface, it's like a potentially very deep, dealing with these like deep rooted like issues, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work the way that I think
Yeah.
she wanted it to work. Um, and I don't like its position between Mirrorball and August. It does not flow like sequentially for me. It doesn't fit what I need. I wish she had called it like 11, and then it could have been like the 11th track.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. My worst song, I don't know if this is a hot take, but is Peace.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that, and I am ready to fight,
Why?
but I'll let you have your moment
Why?
first.
Why? Like, it's just one, like, that I feel like I want to skip.
So for me, that one is it feels very personal to her that she's singing it directly to like Joe. what is his? I almost call him Joe Anglem, and that is not his name.
No, Joe Alwyn.
Alwyn.
Basically
Uh,
the same thing.
yeah, same person. They're both like in cults or whatever. Um,
Oh God.
no, but Joe Alwyn, where she's like, look, everywhere I go, like shit's gonna follow me. Like we're never
As
gonna
a
be on like
superstar.
solid ground. Um, and it
Or
feels
holy
very
ground.
personal, and the way that she sings it is it goes up and down and it rises. And what I also like about it is there are more daggers and stabbings at Scott, Bruschetta, and Scooter Braun and Kanye West, because in the verse that she's like, there's robbers to the east, so she's talking about them robbing her music, and
Yeah.
there's clowns to the west. If you look at the lyric video, the official lyric video, she capitalizes the W in West, but not the E in East, which is like directly pointing to Kanye West and the West family. Um,
Absolutely.
which I think is clever. And that alone is enough to carry the day for it not to be the worst song on the album. But it is another one of those songs where I had to like wrestle with what was going on here, because lyrically I think I enjoyed a lot. Production wise, it does take, some listening to and some like moving to like let it like sit well in your body.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like I think it is very personal because it's talking about like her struggling with like we said, not being able to give like her partner peace and stuff like that. Um
Would it be
and
enough if I could never give you peace?
I just like I don't know. I maybe it's just because I don't relate to that. But I feel like that is like a common thing for people that are like high profile. Like I think a lot of people will relate to this, but I don't know. I don't ever want I guess she's like struggling with that she might be like a burden to like someone else and I just like never want to envision myself like that. So maybe that's why I just like don't resonate with it.
Yeah, I get that. I'm honestly surprised that neither of us said hoax. Um,
I was going to. I
okay,
was going
because
to.
I feel like a lot of people that I have, stalked on Twitter, with this song it is almost too sad. Like it is like soul crushing emo. And I am not at that point where that's what I want
No.
to finish the album on. Um, but there is something about it that like has potential, but it is soul crushing.
Totally. Like, will I be listening to it on replay in November? Sure. Do I want to listen to it now? No,
No,
not at
there
all.
there is a time and a place for that song. Um,
Yes. And when I let you know that I'm listening to it, you can like check in and see how
that's
I'm
when we'll
doing.
be like, okay, where's your address? Let me like deliver you some pizza with some bruschetta.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Like, it's time to like intervene. Like,
But in comparison to the one where she writes the one to be the first track and she nails it, she ends with hoax, and I'm like, I just want to crawl like into a ball and just like cry for days and just like eat cheese balls like on the floor with like a locked door. Like, don't
yeah.
look at me.
I
Um,
basically did that. Like replace cheese balls with like cheesies and like that was me.
you need to check on me if I'm ever eating artificial cheese. Like, I ate like a whole box of Cheez-Its last weekend, and I was like, somebody needs to check in on me right now because this artificial cheese is like an embarrassment to like my existence on this plane.
I love that you brought this up and this is like a side tangent, but yeah, what is it about artificial cheese that just is so like depressing?
It's gross. When I think about it with like Cheetos, like I don't want that like cheese powder. Like that's not how cheese should work. Like cheese should be enjoyed. It should be like an experience. I should be able to make it a cracker. I don't want any of that like macaroni and cheese powder that I have to like stir in and watch become like mushy. I don't like it. I just artificial cheese is one of like oh, like oh, the spray cheese that I used to like put in that like bottle that had air pressure onto my Ritz crackers when I was like in fourth grade, thinking I was like the shit because I had like an entire bottle of Cheese Whiz. Like, who was that person?
That's actually like so sad. I've never had spray can cheese. I feel like Americans have like weird shit with cheese that just like no one fucks with
And
in Canada.
I, why does American cheese exist? I call that American cheese is fake cheese. And the other thing is like I will go get cheese at like the supermarket and I'll be in well, I don't, but like I live at home. So like my mom will and she'll be like, can I have half a pound of American white? And then you go to like make a freaking grilled cheese with it and you can't peel the pieces of cheese like into be single slices. They just lump together because it's American cheese and there is no like ugh, it's terrible. And the only thing worse than it is, oh, we're gonna go off on a tangent here. I apologize,
Yes.
viewers. When COVID first hit, my dad was like the most embarrassing person that I know. And my mom would kill me for telling the story, but he went and like bought fucking food for like the rest of 2020. And one of the things that he bought a ton of, not toilet paper, not tissues, not Germex. We have like 6 cases of Kraft singles cheese. Not only do we have white American, we have yellow American Kraft singles. And every time I look at one of those floppy things in the plastic wrapping, when I go to make a grilled cheese, I immediately say, I'm just going to eat the chips instead. I'm not. I hate peeling out of it. I hate when it gets warm, like on like a summer day and it's just like melted in the plastic. I hate peeling it out. I hate fake cheese.
Okay, that is so funny. Like I actually my face hurts from smiling and laughing. Okay, did you know in Canada we don't call it American cheese?
What do you call it? Trash?
No, we call it Kraft singles or processed cheese.
Yeah, processed cheese. It's gross. Like, like I just can't fathom why. And you wonder why I think it has existed this long is because Americans have such like a high ego that anything that's called American, they need to like mess with. Like there are people who call Moscow mules like American mules. Like, are you that bitter that like Russia has vodka? Like
That's wild.
or back in like the early 2000 when I was like a youngin, so I can't take like any blame for this. When they tried to rebrand French fries as Freedom fries, like America is like a mess of a land in many of ways. And the number one way is their like so-called creation of bringing American cheese onto like the national stage. Like we should be embarrassed. Like I don't know what president was in office when that happened. They needed to be immediately thrown out. The state of Wisconsin should have been shut down because they clearly couldn't be expected to just field this cheese. Also, fun fact, if we have any New England based listeners, my
Do we?
cousin runs a cheese company where they sell quality cheeses, and I can hit you up with a link if you want to get like a box of Maine cheese. It's not American
what's
cheese.
what's the company?
Oh,
Like I'm
this.
interested. Like,
Well, I don't think they ship to
I know.
Canada yet.
I
Well,
know.
if you lived in like Quebec, probably it's with the Maine Cheese Guild.
Oh my god, I love that. I love cheese so much. When you say when you're saying that um like it just seems like such lake food. Like right now you're at the lake and like thinking about making a grilled cheese with a Kraft single is just like the epitome of like lake food. And then going for chips instead, like that is just
Mhm.
lake life.
And I always think this is such a tangent. Wow, your poor viewers. I always think of that scene from She's the Man. Oh yeah, it's She's the Man, where they're like practicing like how you like flirt with a guy, and she's like, "What's your favorite cheese?" My favorite's Gouda. And I always think of that, and I'm like, I think they chose the word Gouda because it sounds gross, but I would take Gouda cheese to Kraft singles 10 days out of 10 days.
100%. Like a smoked Gouda rocks my world. Also, Gouda is the cheese is canceled for other reasons,
Yeah,
I do love it.
people who voluntarily self nickname themselves Gouda. Red flags, red flags, red flags, red flags.
Totally. Like, even if you're like a Packers fan and you're like wearing, like, you're like a cheese head or whatever,
Yes,
like,
yes.
it's just not, it's not it.
Okay, in the spirit of ranking Taylor Swift songs, I need you to rank your top 3 cheeses.
Yeah, okay. And then we'll go to our best song and then we'll wrap up. My top 3 cheeses are, this is actually so hard. Manchego is the first one for
What is
sure.
manchego? See, we
It's
Americans don't have that.
Yeah, it's like a Spanish cheese. It's like it has a strong flavor. Like, I'm so
Is
like
it sharp?
uneducated. Yeah, I would say
Okay.
so. And it's just really good. I don't know. It's really good on everything. It's really good on like a piece of bread. And with like cured meats and stuff like that. My second is probably like goat cheese,
I love
goat's
goat
cheese.
cheese is in my top 3. Yeah, I love
It
goat
has to
cheese.
be. Like, I will eat it any time of the day if it's like flavored, non-flavored, anything. My third is like probably brie, and I know that these are all basic bitch cheeses, I feel like, but like it's brie. That was my gateway cheese.
Yeah, so goat cheese with like blueberries. That might be like a main thing because Maine grows blueberries. Minty. Um, I am a very hit and miss on brie. I used to think that I loved brie when I was like a cheese novice. Um, and then I started tasting it, and it tasted like what feet smell like, and I just couldn't get behind it anymore. Um, so like when my family would cook it at like Christmas time, we'd wrap it in like a puff pastry, but still like the aesthetic of brie just reminds me of feet. Um,
And what's wrong with that?
well, for people who like the feet, they might like the brie.
Fair. Very fair. Very fair. And what's
Um,
your last one?
so I'm about to pick basic cheese as well. I love a good Swiss cheese. So this is funny because a lot of people compare Swiss cheese to feet. I really just like self-dragged, but yeah, a nice like Swiss cheese and like tomato and spinach grilled cheese, like that is my like prime time meal.
Ugh, I'm getting so hungry. Yeah, but literally, I won't turn down a cheese. Like even a
Unless it's
craft
craft
single.
singles.
No, I will stay. I will say for like the nostalgia factor because I haven't eaten a craft single in like years. But like I used to make them with all
Come to
white
my
bread.
house. I can give you
I
a whole
will.
block, 64 slices.
Like okay, like we had in my family a like panini press type situation, and after school every day, I swear to God, I would make a grilled cheese that was a craft single, butter and white bread.
My sister didn't eat her first grilled cheese until her 15th birthday. That's my like favorite
How?
fun fact of my sister.
How? It's like kid food.
Yeah, I she's very particular about her food, so she would eat religiously bologna, American cheese, and mustard on white bread. Like to this day, she still does that. That like she went to a friend's house one day and didn't have food options, and her friend's mom made her grilled cheese, and she was like, she came home. I remember it, and she was like, "Oh my God, did you guys know there was this thing called grilled
Did you?
cheese?" And we were all like, who yeah, so
Okay, before we move on, I just want to tell you because like this is like so alarming, but I'm in a Facebook group called Foods with Threatening Auras. And I feel like like this just basically like sums up what we've talked about around craft singles. And it's just I don't know. The group description just says you can read on, but if you're confused as to why this group is necessary, like it just is. And And it's just basically that people will post pictures of foods with threatening auras, and there's nothing more that you really need to say about that.
A half wrapped craft single, threatening aura.
Yeah, or like when you take it out of the package and just half of it comes out and the other
Yeah.
half's like stuck in the cellophane part.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Okay, so speaking of cheesy.
Yes. Okay, last thing, I swear to God, on cheese, and then our best song. But you know how I said I was listening to I was eating cheesies and like crying to my tears ricochet / hoax, etc. I buy these cheesies called Barbara's, like they're Barbara's brand or whatever. And they're basically like non-GMO. So and like you get them at like the organic, like I think they're organic. So then I just like say that they're like fine to eat, which like they are fine to eat, obviously. But like, I'm just like, this isn't bad because it's not like bright orange, like fluorescent orange.
So that was me when I was like a young child and I used to drink like orange soda and it was a naturally flavored instead of the artificially flavored grape soda. And I just was like, it's healthy. It's natural.
Yeah.
It's healthy. It's natural.
You just think you're like better than people?
Yeah. I mean, I still do. I mean, I still am. But yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, long story short, if I am on the ground eating Cheez-Its or cheese balls, you need to get me help immediately. The only song on this album that could push me to that level, I think, is Exile with Bon Iver.
Yeah, that's fair. Honestly, many of these can push me to the edge, but I'm a fragile person, so like unstable on the best of days. So, Nick, what is your best song? I like that we're ending this on a high note.
This is so hard because I think it changes every day. I think when I look back like at this album, I think like 6 months from now when I'm not listening to it every day, which who's to say I won't still be at that point. The one that I will keep going back to will be The One. I think I really think that song is so timeless that there is never a time that I will listen to that and not feel that or empathize with that emotion.
Yeah, I honestly have to agree. It was the absolute perfect song. I remember reacting in our group chat, just being like, this is it. Like, this is the song. Like, it's just perfection. I love the melody. I love the lyrics. It's perfect. And I find myself just wanting to play the album just so I can hear this one song.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And that's not to say, like, I really enjoy Exile with Bon Iver. I think that is such a strong duet where their voices match with each other so well and the call and response matches so well. Every time I think of duets, I think of the Elf movie with Will Ferrell and Zooey Deschanel singing back and forth in the bathroom like that. And the duet really hits that vibe that I need where it's like the call and response. And it's just like you see both sides. It's kind of like daunting when one person is, or Bon Iver is like, you never even gave me a sign, and or you never gave a warning sign, and she's like, I gave so many signs. And the way she even like pronounces it is just like, or sings that verse is like she's exhausted, like she just like needs like this to be over and in the rear view. This Is Me Trying has a very similar like packed punch. And I've said I've liked August, I like Illicit Affairs, I like Betty, but The One is the one.
Yeah, it truly is. Like my close second would be Invisible String because
that one's so cute. Yeah,
it's so
I don't have
cute
anybody
and
in my life like that though. So.
I just feel like it's like there's, I don't know, it's just poppy and fun and like I feel like it sounds like her like OG stuff like with the guitar and stuff like that, but yeah, The One beats out all of them. It'll be the one that I'm playing just like all the time and stuff like that. Like it truly is.
And this podcast will be the one the viewers keep coming back to listen to. If not for our cheese conversation, the Taylor Swift conversation as well.
Yeah, like I'm going to, when I'm promoting this, start with the cheese conversation and follow up with folklore. And honestly, with my audience, like if there's anything similar to me, like that's totally okay. But yeah, thank you so much, Nick, for coming on the podcast. This was a great conversation. And yeah, you had so many great thoughts about the album, and see where Taylor takes us next.
And the viewers better tell Tori how much you love this one. Give her the 5-star reviews so that I can keep coming back. Or give her a terrible review of me so that I can come back and we can talk about my mental state.
Yeah, or yeah, like if all of your hot takes don't land with the listeners, you'll come back to defend yourself, or we can start like a cancel Nick party or something.
Yes, as long as I get to show up to it.
Yeah. Amazing. Anyways, thanks for coming on. I super appreciate it.
Thank you.
And there you have it, our deep dive into folklore. If you enjoyed Nick, you can follow along on Instagram at Drinky11. I'll make sure to tag him in my posts. And if you're not following the podcast, follow along on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at RTBP Podcast. And you can join our listener Facebook group, Ready to Be Petty Podcast group. We're doing some fun stuff over there. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you are safe and well. As always, I'm your host, Tori, and I am ready to be petty. See you soon. Bye.